What's going on, everybody, and welcome into the Between the Hashmarks podcast interview. As always, I'm Matt Lombardo, and my guest this week is one of the top linebackers in the sport, good friend of the program, and one of the consummate locker room leaders that you'll find, new Green Bay Packers linebacker Zaire Franklin. Franklin, the former Colts star, was traded to the Packers just before free agency got underway, and while there's been a lot made and a lot of conjecture about Green Bay's offseason and where exactly this team stands in the NFC and in the Super Bowl race ahead, it's hard to argue that adding a player like Franklin, who's always around the football, into a defense alongside an athletic linebacker like Edgerrin Cooper and behind Micah Parsons, it's hard to argue that this doesn't have the chance to be a major upgrade for the Packers. And in addition to making a Pro Bowl and garnering second-team All-Pro recognition in 2024, Franklin's doing some awesome work off the field as well via his foundation, Shalice's Angels, and he's also an NFL flag football ambassador. Franklin's one of my favorite people in the entire sport, full disclosure there, and we touched on all of that and more during our conversation, including whether he feels like he has something to prove after how his Colts career ended in 2025. Be sure to follow Zaire on Instagram at Zaire_. And you can follow Shalice's Angels on Instagram as well. And now, here's my conversation with new Packers linebacker, Zaire Franklin. Yeah, so Zaire, great to catch up with you again. Friend of the pod, your first time on the Between the Hashmarks podcast. Great to chat with you. How you doing, my friend?
I'm blessed, man. Just spending some time in Philly with the family, just getting some stuff done before, we get back into Green Bay and getting the season rolling,
So, of course, you're a Philly kid, you're a Philly guy, you're back in the city. I was born and raised just outside of the Philly suburbs. I'm still in the Philly suburbs. So I got to ask, what's your cheesesteak spot? Where's the go-to?
Yeah, so my cheesesteak spot, is Del Sandro's. So shout out to Del Sandro's. But everybody in the city keep trying to tell me, I think it's because they got the Michelin star. Everybody's kind of, hating on them. But a lot of people have been talking about Shay's too lately, though. So I might have to make that trip before I leave town.
All right. Well, next time you're in town, because I'm a little jammed up tomorrow with some family things going on, but next time you roll into the city, how about Del Rossi's or D'Alessandro's? You pick, but we got to connect. We got to talk ball. Got to have some cheesesteaks. How's that sound?
Yeah, that's perfect. We definitely can do that.
Awesome. So you're back in the city this weekend, but I have to ask, growing up in Philly, how did Philly football culture kind of shape you? And were there any lessons from your upbringing in the sport, in the city that have stuck with you all these years?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, Philly's a football city, my mom, my grandmother, diehard Eagles fans. I grew up watching that Eagles defense with, Jeremiah Trotter, Javon Curse, Brian Dawkins, Lito Shepherd, like all those boys. And I mean, they just play smash mouth, tough, physical ball. It was about playing, late in, January, when the weather's cold and the season, everything's on the line and making big plays. And I definitely feel like that helped shape, just my mentality. One, for just an appreciation of, the type of brand of football that I love to play. But also, Philly's, they're gonna talk and they're gonna back it up, So that's kind of my brand of ball. I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do, then I'm gonna do it, then I'm gonna tell you what I did. So that's typically how I like to do it.
Dude, I love it. And going from one football town where you grew up, a great football town, to maybe football mecca in Green Bay. This has had to have been a really whirlwind offseason for you. Take me through the moment where you found out you were getting traded, because obviously you've been a captain forever in Indianapolis. I'm sure you have great relationships with the Colts and your teammates, but you get traded to Green Bay. You're going to have the Packers helmet on. You're going to go to training camp and ride the kids' bikes from the practice facility back to Lambeau. What was that moment like for you when you found out that you were getting traded?
Yeah, so first off, shout out to the Colts. I felt like, they did it with class. They kind of let me know, they were going to start shopping me. And they pretty much, we had several teams interested. And to be honest with you, they kind of let me, make my pick. And, I've already had a relationship with Jonathan Gannon with when he was on with the Colts staff. Always, had a close relationship with him. And just kind of knowing where Green Bay is, they got a great quarterback, great pass rusher, great head coach. They're a young team that's ready to make that next step. And I know they've wanted me for a long time as well, too. So For me, it was kind of, a little bit of a no-brainer. We worked out the details, and, I just wanted to make sure I was with my family when the news, like, actually went through, just because I knew it was just a big deal. My daughter was born in Indianapolis. My son, he goes to school there. My wife, she built a niche there, too. So I know it was a big change for them, but just really looking forward to, like you said, football heaven. You go out there and, I'm going to tell you, when you walk in that building, the first thing you notice is 4 Super Bowl championships. And that's all it's about over there. That's all it's about over there, bringing a Lombardi back to Green Bay. That's all they talk about. So that's what I want to live up to.
For sure. And, you talk about Jonathan Gannon and the familiarity you guys had when you were both in Indianapolis. His system, whether it was defensive coordinator in Philadelphia with a veteran like Xavier White or some of the front 7 defenders he had in Arizona as a head coach, his system really seems to bring out the best in veteran linebackers. What's your impression of that scheme? And when you found out you're going to be playing for Jonathan Gannon as the defensive coordinator, what were some of those conversations like between the two of you?
Man, I think it's funny, but in a sense, we were kind of raised a little bit with a similar mindset, in the league, being together in the same building for 4 years. Once the trade, pretty much was going through, me and him having a conversation, and we just believe in the same things, effort, physicality, and taking the ball away. And, I think, with just JG's experience, not only as a DC, but as a head coach, first and foremost, he's just bringing that wealth of knowledge into that building. It's a great staff over there, and obviously they got the guys over there to make plays on the field. So he's going to put guys in position to make plays. That's what he's all about, and allowing the players to make the plays come alive and not the other way around. So I think, just that adjustment going to Green Bay is going to put me in a better position.
You mentioned how there were a handful of suitors, maybe even more than that, and you got to pick and choose your situation. Does it feel like this is your best chance to go chase a ring? And was that one of the – because you guys talk about it all the time. Some guys just want to go to get paid. Some guys want to go work with a coach that they played for at a different part of their career. Some guys want to chase a ring. How valuable was that part of it, that part of the equation for the Packers for you? How big a deal was that?
Major. I said, I mean – you look at, Jordan Love, just a great young quarterback in this league who really, starting to hit that stride. Obviously, the head coach is one of the elite play callers in his league. And I mean, defensively, you look, from McKinney to Micah, looking forward to getting with young Coop and young Bullard. He just hit me up too, so it's going to be a good thing. I just looked at that team, just as I felt like I could be the piece that was missing to take them over the top. And, I know division is tough, but that's what they live with. Those are the type of games you want to play, and those are that type of situation you want to live in. So
I'm glad you brought up Edgerrin Cooper, because 2 years ago as a rookie, here's a kid who gets all-pro votes, always around the football, tackle machine. I've heard some people kind of loosely compare him to your style of play, right? And now you get to line up next to him in the middle of that front 7. You have a chance to be one of the more dynamic linebacker duos in the sport. What's kind of your impression of Cooper as a player, and how excited are you to get into that linebacking core and play alongside him?
Man, it's been cool. I've been watching last season just to kind of get caught up on the guys, and man, rangy, physical, makes a lot of great plays in coverage. Elite, when it just comes to dissecting the play and playing fast, and I think that's at the end of the day, a linebacker's job is to see the ball and hit the ball and run it down no matter where it is. And I think he does an excellent job at that. I look at him and I just feel like our games can perfectly complement each other. I see our ceiling being the best duo in the league for sure.
I agree. And your whole career personally, you've been a model of consistency, 100 tackles every year, consummate leader in the locker room, a captain in Indianapolis. You bring that to Green Bay. But you hear guys talk all the time about the path to greatness being boring, right? That it's a marathon, not a sprint, all those sort of things. How do you stay locked into that, especially when some of the doldrums do come up throughout the course of a difficult season or a difficult stretch of a game?
Man, I've had great role models throughout my career and throughout my life, who really just taught me at the end of the day, you got to find different ways to motivate yourself, whether that's, a different. First off, winning is the number one motivation. You want to play big games and big moments. I feel like you mentioned, that's the main reason I'm going to Green Bay. I want to play in big games. I want to be in the playoffs. I want to compete for a Super Bowl. That's what this whole thing is all about. When you get to that point, you just consistently finding ways to get an edge. You listen to Tom Brady or Kobe Bryant talk. They talk about, competing against, the other team's linebacker. If I go out there and I play and I'm playing against another great linebacker on another team, I feel like it's me versus him. If I look forward to playing against, the best running backs in the league. Whenever I'm playing one of the better running backs in the league, that's another edge for me. Whenever I'm playing another great offensive coordinator, that's another edge for me. Like, you just got to consistently find ways to get up in the morning. And, it's highs and lows in the season, in a career, and lifetime. But just staying consistent and to your routine and believing in your process, that's just going to make you the most successful.
I think there's a lot of people who are really excited about you landing with the Packers and what you can bring to that defense. But there have been some whispers about your production being a little bit down last year, maybe not the same player you were 2 or 3 years ago. When you hear things like that, I see the smile, I see the grin for people who are listening to the podcast rather than watching on YouTube. But does that put an extra chip on your shoulder to go in there and say, okay, dude, I'm an all-pro. I'm a tackle machine. Like, does that bring you some added motivation when you step onto that field week one?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I mean, it's so funny. I was just in my house that I grew up in, and I'm looking at, like, my high school pictures, and, my aunt's got all kinds of stuff in there. And, man, I've never in my career, my life, been the high expectations guy. All I've ever done is come and prove everybody wrong. I love it. People, comparing, I guess what they say is a down year. I'll just tell them, my down year is some of these guys' career highs. So, I just will put that into perspective. But that's the standard that I set in my career as a starter. I wouldn't change my journey, for anybody. And, like I said, when I come into Green Bay, it's not about me. I'm telling you, all I care about is winning. I just want to come and make that an elite defense, elite linebacker room, elite team. But I'm looking forward to proving that I am who I say I am.
Dude, so much elite talent there. You got you now. You got Xavier McKinney. You look behind you, Xavier's back there. Edgerrin Cooper's next to you. Lucas Van Ness, a guy that they're still kind of high on. He has something to prove this year. Micah's there, kind of racing you to the quarterback. You talked about being the missing piece. What's that look like to you? Like, if we're having this conversation in January and looking back on maybe your goals going into the year, what do you hope that you are able to do personally to be that missing piece and put them over the top?
Man, first off, I would just say, just from, a teammate and a leadership standpoint, I'm just hoping I could be a guy that can help rally everybody together. The best teams and across sports are the ones that believe in each other, that like each other, that spend time together. I hope I could be a guy that can help create that bond on that defense to where we're all moving as one. On the field, it's just a point of attack, a tip of the spear, that attitude, that physicality, that tone setter out there that, that division requires. Someone who is, allowing, Coop to play free to where he can move and be in positions where he can make all type of plays from across the field, a lead communicator, making sure, X and Bullard and Keyshawn Nixon and those guys are all on the same page on the back end. And, just taking whatever stress off of everybody's plate so Micah could just go be Micah. So, that's just how I feel. That's just who I know I can be. But, like I said before, when I come into that locker room, come April, I'm at the bottom. I got to earn my way up. I got to earn my trust. I got to earn my spot. But I'm looking forward to it.
Rapid fire here. Who's the measuring stick for you? A lot of linebackers might look at you and say you're the measuring stick that they look up to. Who's the linebacker that you pat in your game after, or you put on the TV on a Sunday night or a Monday and say, okay, I gotta make sure I'm watching him?
Well, it's got to be my big brother, Bobby Wagner, for sure. He beat me out in tackles at the last game of the season. I led the whole year, and he beat me out the last game of the season. I finally beat him and 24, and then he told me call him when I lead the league 4 times. So it's just levels. It's levels. It's levels. Obviously, I love Jeremiah Trotter. He's the reason I play linebacker to this day. Just a huge fan of a lot of guys. I get a lot of motivation from a lot of guys in this league. I love Ernest Jones. I love his game. I love Quincy Williams. I love his game as well. So it's a lot of guys across this league that I like.
All right, who's the running back you got circled on the matchup?
You try to get me in beef. I love playing all the top. I love playing all the top guys, and all the top guys know I love playing them. But I guess it starts in the division, and I'll leave it at that.
I got you. Green Bay, land of the cheese. Have you got some good Wisconsin cheddar yet since you've been out there? Or?
I did get some good cheese curds. We went to dinner. Cheese is actually my weakness. I'm actually obsessed with cheese. I don't know, I shouldn't tell Green Bay that, but I really do love cheese. I don't know. It's just a thing for me. But so cheese curds, I gotta low key stay away because I gotta make sure I'm making weight and all that. So
I always love covering games at Lambeau because the cheese curds they put out for the media at halftime. It's like that's it. Give me the bowl with the cheese curds. That's all. And you can keep the brats, keep the kielbasa, give me the cheese curds. Give me all of them.
Literally, that's me. That's literally me. So yeah, I gotta keep my cheese curds intake to a minimum, but I know I'm gonna get flooded. So it's okay.
So off the field, you've done some amazing things as well. You're a flag football ambassador. What's that been like for you? What's that experience been like? And what are you up to in terms of advancing the game with the Olympics coming up and everything like that?
Man, it's been a blessing. So my foundation, Salicia's Angels, founded in 2019. Historically, when we first started, was a financial literacy and entrepreneurship with a focus on young women. Once the NFL approaches about a flag ambassadorship, we really kind of pivoted, and we've been doing a lot of great things in the girls' flag space, and it's fantastic. Last year, we hosted a huge jamboree in Philly. We're going to host another one again this year. Last year, we had a couple of the national team girls come out. Shout out to Izzy Diaz and Amber. They both are still on the national team. It was cool following them their year and watching them compete at a high level. And bring home a world title. So it's been really cool, man. It's flag football is a really dope space. I love how it's emerging, how it's bringing everybody along, it's growing our game, and it's also giving young women the opportunity to learn and grow in life the way football has taught us so much too. So I love that a lot too.
It was wild watching last weekend when you had the NFL All-Stars going up against the professional flag guys and the flag football team. It's a different sport. I mean, these guys are running all kinds of different set plays, and it's almost like watching basketball on a football field, and just the athleticism. And what you guys do on Sundays is one thing, and I would not want to be running up the A-gap staring at you across the line of scrimmage, right? I mean, it is what it is. But those flag guys, the athleticism, man, and the girls' flag games that you watched, the athleticism is just off the charts.
Well, yes, their athleticism is fantastic. I would just say it's truly just a different game. The only time I've ever actually played flag was in a Pro Bowl. And I vividly remember, we're on the 10-yard line and they were in a jet sweep to Bijan. And I mean, this is Bijan. Oh, no. He's fast. I'm about to gator roll tackle him just off of instinct and muscle memory. And then I got to remember, grab his flag, So it's it's just a different, we train our minds and develop just a certain muscle memory a little differently. I mean, and it's not tough. I mean, Joe Burrow is an all-time quarterback, but he's not supposed to play defense. You know what I mean? So it's but shout out to flag. I know a lot of those guys, especially shout out to my guy Newski, man. He's from Philly, got a Philly guy on there he had a pick six too. So I'm really close with some of those flag dudes, man. I knew they was going to put on. Honestly, I knew it was going to go that way. It was just interesting to see Tom Brady lose like that. That was kind of sad.
That doesn't happen often. So before we get on here, I know you just had a scholarship event, a scholarship banquet for the Salicia's Angels Foundation. How did it go, and how can people find out more?
Yeah, so this past Thursday, March 26th, we hosted our second annual scholarship gala in Philly. When I was in high school, my junior year, I lost both of my parents, 2 months apart. And, the high school that I went to, LaSalle, really wrapped their arms around me. So once, we established our foundation, we created a scholarship for a young man from Philadelphia area to go to that school just to help assist him and his parents to give them a better opportunity the same way that LaSalle gave me a better opportunity at a good education. So we honored a young man and gave him a scholarship, as well as acknowledge some community leaders in the Philadelphia area. So it was a fantastic night. We had a great time. It's a great cause. And, we kind of talked about all the different things that we do. So follow us, on Instagram at Shalice's Angels, SHELICES Angels, or Shalice'sAngels.org, and just learn more about us.
Absolutely. Zaire Franklin doing God's work in the community and tearing it up on the football field, the newest Green Bay Packer. Zaire, this has been a ton of fun, as it always is. You can follow Zaire on Instagram at Zaire_, or check out Shalice's Angels on Instagram and Shalice'sAngels.org. Zaire, ton of fun as always. And again, next time you're in town, the cheesesteaks at Del Rossi's are on me. We could even go to D'Alessandro's. I'll meet you there.
I haven't had Del Rossi's in a minute. We can hit Del Rossi's. That's a good thing for me. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Awesome. Well, appreciate the time, man, and we'll talk to you further up the road.
Yes, sir.
Great stuff there from Zaire Franklin. Awesome addition to the Green Bay Packers defense. Really excited to see what he's able to do in a new spot with all of that talent around him in Green Bay. And again, I think the Packers are going to be one of the more interesting teams in the league just because of all of the pieces they've lost on offense via free agency. But adding Franklin into the mix has the potential and the chance to be a major upgrade. So appreciate everybody tuning in. If you enjoy the podcast, please go ahead and subscribe to Between the Hashmarks in the Apple Podcast Store. Leave us those 5-star ratings and reviews. They really do help grow the show, make it easier for folks to find, pushes us up in the algorithm. So subscribe in the Apple Podcast Store, leave a 5-star rating and a review. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, maybe a guest that you'd like to see appear on this podcast, and we'll try to go hunt them down and bring them on and have a conversation with them as well. And of course, if you enjoy my features and the written content and my insider reporting, please go ahead and subscribe to Between the Hashmarks on Substack. That's where you can find this podcast. You can find the Monday Morning 4 Downs column, the mailbag every week, the features, the reporting, all of those things. Mike Tanner and I are off this week on the Between the Hashmarks podcast. We'll talk to you next week, same time, same place, right here on the Between the Hashmarks podcast. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll talk to you then.